Thank you for having me for your first meeting of the year. Sorry, last month's was canceled, but I like to be first for a lot of things. Let me ask you a couple questions. Is there anyone in here who is already published? Any type of publishing? Very good, very good. How many of you are Great. How many self-published authors here have sold more than 20 books? You are well above average. Unfortunately, self-publishing is such a difficult industry because the good news is that it's so easy to self-publish now that everyone can do it. The bad news is that it's so easy to self-publish now, everyone can do it. So you're competing with a lot of authors who haven't done any of the critiquing, so they haven't been able to improve their work, and they're putting things out there for free. And when someone goes to Amazon to look for a book, and they have a choice between two authors they don't know, and both book jackets look interesting, and one of them is $5.99 and one of them is free, it's difficult to not pick the free book. So I encourage authors to always price their work what they feel they deserve. However, when you get a chance to put your book on Amazon, don't be afraid to, you can do flash sales on Amazon and offer it 30 days for free. You can offer it for a certain amount of time for 99 cents just to get some sales and to get some buzz and to get some review, and then you can always raise the price later. But I think every author's ultimate goal should be traditional publishing, where somebody else pays for the printing, somebody else pays for the distribution. It can be in the bookstores. It will get more sales. Again, the average self-published author sells 20 books, and it's a lot of effort to sell more than that. A traditional publisher will print your book at their expense. That's fantastic. A traditional publisher will distribute the book at their expense. That's amazing. A traditional publisher will print about 200 copies to send out for reviews. That's an expense the author doesn't have to bear. A traditional publisher will send out a press release on their letterhead about your book. And a press release on Simon & Schuster's letterhead is going to get in the publication. A press release on your letterhead might not. So all those things really help sales. So every author's ultimate goal should be traditional publishing, but it doesn't mean you can't self-publish first. You can self-publish. Used to be if you self-published, a traditional publisher would never even look at you because you dared to self-publish your work. That stigma is no longer in publishing because self-publishing is so prevalent now. So don't be afraid to self-publish and then send that manuscript to a traditional publisher to see if they'll pick it up. And if you self-publish and have no results, they don't even have to know that. If you self-publish and have some good results, that will even entice them more to buy the book and pick it up. The most successful self-published author happened in the last 10 years. Do you know who that is? E.L. James. Do you know what the book was? 50 Shades of Grey. So it doesn't even have to be a good book. It just has to sell. So think about that. But selling is about marketing, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But when you submit to a traditional publisher, you have to include a query letter. How many of you have ever written a query letter? How many of you have been successful with that query letter and a traditional publisher picked it up? Okay, so the rest of you got the rejections. And it may have nothing to do with the manuscript itself, because maybe they never got to that. It may have more to do with the query letter. Look, we have background music. We all set? That's fine. That's fine. It was good music. It was good music. So it may have been the query letter. It may also have been your inexperience as a published writer. So there's a lot of factors that go into acceptance from a traditional publisher, but it all starts with the query letter. So we're gonna go down to the basics. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of a writing assignment right now. What I want you to do is think about the last thing you wrote, the last thing you completed, whether it was an article, a short story, a novel, nonfiction book. Think about the last thing you finished. Now I want you to write one sentence that tells me everything about it. I want the beginning, the middle, the end, and the hook all in one sentence. And the sentence can be no more than 25 words, because that's what you get with a pitch, 25 words. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do that. Ready? Go. If you don't grab them with this, they're not going to keep going to see what else is there. And this is also considered your pitch. When you see someone, you go to a conference and you're talking to publishers, you may be able to do a pitch. And your pitch is one sentence, 25 words or less, that tells them everything you need to tell them about what you've written. Once you start droning on, they start nodding out. So this had to be done very quickly for me. So when you get home, edit, edit, edit. Make it the best it can be, and then memorize it, so that any chance you get to pitch, you do. Because somebody knows somebody knows somebody, has a referral, has a name, has an address they can give you just by hearing your pitch. So make sure you do that. Okay, let me have about 3 volunteers to read us their pitch. Right here in the front.
A dysfunctional family has a disastrous event that changes everyone's lives. Some fare better, some fare worse, but no one stays the same.
Okay, a little bit of intrigue in there. So it kind of captures my attention to see what else is there. All right, also in the front.
This is a magazine article instead. Collecting the West in art happened at a yard sale, and it earned me $12,000. And the art is now in Palm Springs Museum. Trash to treasure, you bet.
Okay, it's like, oh, maybe I can do that too with the dollar amount that you threw in there, and that you found it in somebody else's possessions. Very good. Okay, right in the middle there.
Enveloped in nature, I watch enraptured as mountain bluebirds flit and soar like broken bits of azure sky in the golden ravine below me.
Okay.
It's about a hike.
Very melodic. Make sure that you had to explain to me after that, it's about a hike,
Yeah.
right? So if you have to explain what you explained, that's not as effective as it could be. So make sure that you're giving the crux of it. Yes, a couple more.
Oh, okay, this was when I wrote for the literary review. It's a short story. We know what the flood was like for Noah, but what about everyone else?
Okay, short, sweet, and sort of grabs you. So that's good, and then you can expound on that as you go along. Okay, well, another one over here.
It had been 30 years since I was responsible for watching a 2-year-old, when I remember that I was supposed to be watching her. Both she and my mother were screaming.
Okay, all right, something that probably is relatable to a lot of people. All right.
Okay, this is a 5-book series. John, a war hero returning from military, injured and with amnesia, becomes an Elvis impersonator, country singer, TV star, and retirement home owner. Ends at the rapture.
Okay, giving us a lot of details there. All right, one more.
50 years after Paulette goes to study in France in 1939, to find herself, she does so after working in the French Resistance.
Okay, all right, some good itemized details there. Okay, I see this little one counting her words right here. Do you want to read us yours? No? Okay, all right, very good. So they were good in 3 minutes. They were very good. You take that home and give it another hour to edit and hone, it can be even better. But remember that you have to grab them with your, what I call the wow factor paragraph. If your story is about a boy and his dog, it has to be different than every other story that's ever been written about a boy and his dog. You have to let them know why there should be one more story about a boy and his dog. So give them the different point of view, the different ending, climax. What is it about yours that makes it different? So when you're creating this wow factor paragraph, you don't want to say anything like, well, this is the beginning, and this is the middle, and this is the end. Because that's boring. Give them the difference. Why is your story about a hike different than everyone else's story about a hike? Why is your story about a boy and a dog different than everyone else's story about a boy and his dog? So that's what wows them. That's what keeps them moving on. So that's what you want to start with in your query letter. But a query letter, for those of you who are not too familiar with it, is simply the letter that either goes prior to submitting your manuscript or on top of your manuscript when you are submitting it to a publisher. And you will know exactly what to send them by each publisher's information. One of the best resources to find publishers is a book called The Writer's Market. The Writer's Market is published by Writer's Digest Books. And this book has more than 7,000 places to submit fillers, greeting cards, poetry, magazine articles, short stories, full-length novels, nonfiction books, children's books. Whatever it is that you have written, this is the book that tells you where to submit it. Now, they did have a website, writersmarket.com. However, Writer's Market which is a division, Writer's Digest Books, which is a division of F&W Publications, was just bought by Random House. So because of the transition, their website is down. And they don't know how long it's going to take to come back up. So although I've been using the website for many years, I bought the 2020 book. So I'm now carrying around an 800-page book again. But whatever it takes to get my information, because if you're looking for publishers simply by going to the book store, well, I've written a history book, so let me go to the history shelf at the bookstore to see where to send it in. You are missing most of your opportunities. Not only are you missing those opportunities, you also now have to read a little bit of every book to see if yours is parallel, to see if it's something they would want. And if they do want it, then you have to try to figure out who to send it to and how they want it sent. If you're using a resource like the Writer's Market, it's a paragraph of information for each publisher which tells you everything you need to know about submitting to this publisher. So use this resource. If you are simply using the internet as your tool, well, I'll just type in a search for publishers or publishers of history. Well, now it's going to be mixed up with all the traditional publishers, the e-publishers, the self-publishing companies, the scam companies, and you have to figure out who's who and what's what. Use a resource like the Writer's Market, and it will tell you in that paragraph information if they want query only, if they want query with sample chapters, if they want query with first 3 chapters, if they want query with samples of your work, if they want query with entire manuscript. It will tell you exactly what they're looking for. If it doesn't say anything, assume it means send the query letter with whatever else you want. But it includes a query letter. And the basics of a query letter, it's just a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Make sure it's, if you're submitting it through the mail, make sure it's white, not yellow like this. Don't do anything fancy like, well, if I send it on a pink piece of paper, they'll notice it more. No, what they'll notice is that you're not a professional writer, and they'll probably throw it away. It's like the people who attach dollar bills to their resumes, thinking that's going to get them a little bit further. No, they're going to take the dollar bill, they're going to do that, and then they're going to throw the resume away. So don't do anything fancy. Use your words to sell the query letter. So it's a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, black ink, and you're going to use one side of the page only, just as you do with your manuscript. It's always one side of the page only. I had someone in one of my lectures who had written a 350-page single-spaced novel. And I explained it has to, the manuscript has to be double-spaced. That's the way it is. And he came up after and he's like, 700 pages, that's a lot. I said, yeah, that is a lot. And he's like, well, can't I just send it this way? I said, yeah, you can send it any way you want. But if you get rejected, are you going to have to wonder, oh, is it because I didn't double space? Why do that? So follow all the rules, as Dwight was saying, follow the rules. Give them what they're looking for so that they will get past the query letter onto the manuscript. But the query letter is single-spaced. It's like a regular block-style, single-spaced business marketing letter, which is exactly what this is. You're trying to sell your manuscript to a publisher. So your first, now you've found the publishers that you want to submit to. And whether it's submitted via email as an attachment or you're sending it through the mail, and they'll tell you that as well in the paragraph, you're going to format it the same way. So you will address it to the publisher at the publication, just like a regular letter, Dear Mr. or Ms. If the name is, Mr. Brown or Ms. Brown, if the name is something like Pat Brown, and you're not sure, just say, Dear Pat Brown. That way you cannot possibly insult anyone. Because if they're in a bad mood that day, That might be all it takes. So you have to understand that they get so many queries that they can be as picky as they want to be. So follow all the rules. So now your first paragraph, the wow paragraph, you're going to present your the meat and potatoes of your story and then expand on it a little bit. But don't go past one paragraph because you have a lot more to say. And this query letter should only be 1 page. There's only just so much you can fit on 1 page. And when I start my query letters, even if it's only a 10-page article, my query letter usually starts out 3 pages. Because I think everything is so important. Well, this is important, I must tell them this, and this is an important part of the story, and this is important, and this is important. And then I use my editing skills to combine sentences. That's really not as important as I thought it was. It's like when you're packing for a vacation, and you need to bring everything, and then it won't fit in the suitcase. So you start deciding what's not so important anymore and start taking it out. So think of it that way and edit it down to 1 sentence. I try to go with 12-point font because it's just easier to read. But I will confess, there are a few times when I've gone down to 10 just because I really have to squeeze it in on the page. But don't go further than that. So your first paragraph, the wow paragraph. Then the next thing you need to do is explain your qualifications. Why are you the person who should write about this? What is your education, your research, your inspiration, your work experience, your life experience that makes you the person who should write about this? You're writing something science fiction, you've read science fiction, you've paid attention to science fiction, you can offer them some examples of what's comparable to yours. This is how you know they're the right publisher. They have to know what is your credibility, your qualifications. Then they also need to know what is your credibility as an author. What have you done so far as a writer? Understand that publishers want to work with published writers. Well, how can you be a published writer if no one will publish your work? It's kind of a catch-22. But there is something that you've done that qualifies you as a writer. And if it's not as a published author, it's whatever education that you had in terms of writing. It's whatever groups that you belong to that help you hone your writing. So in lieu of having published credits that you can offer whatever you have. But don't ever say anything negative. Don't ever say anything like, well, I haven't been published yet, but all of my family and friends love this story and said I should send it to you. Well, of course they said that. They're your family and your friends. You just asked for a rejection. So save anything negative, only include positives. And if there is nothing that you can put in, this is the first thing that you've done, you have no background in writing at all, just leave that part out. Just leave it out. Let them guess that you left it out because you're so good you felt you didn't have to put it in. So just leave it out. So you include your qualifications for writing this. You include your credibility as a writer. Then you have to also include your marketing platform. And this is becoming more and more important. And your marketing platform is your ability to help sell this product. Because When you have an article in print, when you have a book in print, this is now a product, and you have to help sell this product. If it's a book, again, with a traditional publisher, they're going to print the book, distribute the book, send out review copies, and send out a press release. But unless you are John Grisham or Stephen King, the buck stops there. They save the rest of their marketing budget for them. So you, as the author, are responsible for getting the word out about your book, for going to do book signings. I don't know if you remember the story of John Grisham when he had his first book published. They did a very short run, I think about 10,000 books, and they weren't selling very well, so he was going to be a one-off author. That was going to be it for him, according to the publisher. But he took those books, put them in his trunk, and went up and down the eastern seaboard doing book signings at any bookstore that would have him, selling one book at a time. And the word got out, and the word got out, and more books sold, and more books sold, and for the next book he got a $3 million advance. So that was his effort. He did that. So you, as the author, you have to do that. You have to be willing to get out there and do talks and do book signings and create a marketing platform. And your marketing platform is your Amazon. I'll tell you what I have. I have an Amazon author page. I have a Facebook business page. I have a LinkedIn business page. I have Twitter. I have Instagram. And I am starting a blog, which is so time intensive. It's really, you have to be disciplined to have a blog. And I'm starting a YouTube channel. All of these things will help get the word out about me and the products that I have. I have about 8 books now on Amazon. I'm the salesperson. Amazon's not the salesperson. I'm the salesperson. So you have to create some type of marketing platform and let the publisher know what you can do to help market this product. Because if they have 2 authors who have submitted novels and same amount of credibility, experience, the same amount of publishing credits, and one person can offer nothing in terms of marketing ability, and the other person explains that they have an Amazon author page, and they have a LinkedIn, and they have a Facebook business page, and they have Twitter and Instagram and a blog and a YouTube channel, which one do you think they're going to pick? They're going to pick the person that can market their product. So you have to, doesn't mean you have to have all those things, but try to have 3. Try to start your marketing with 3. Facebook business page, easy, doesn't cost anything. LinkedIn page, doesn't cost. These things don't cost anything. It just means you have to be consistent about putting content. And it can just be once a month. Once a month on my Facebook business page, I put somebody's compliment that they've given in my online class. When they review it, I take one of those compliments and I put it on the page. So somebody else can say, oh, somebody else liked this course, maybe I'll take it. So things like that. So you have to create your marketing platform. And then your last paragraph is the polite one. I appreciate you taking the time to look at my work. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Don't get chummy with them. If it's a humorous novel, bring that tone into the query. If it's a serious nonfiction book, bring that into your query. It should reflect the tone of what you've written. But you're not their friend. You're not their friend. So be professional with whatever you do. And then when you close it with sincerely. That's always the best business choice, not love, just put sincerely. And then if you are submitting it by mail, and again, the paragraph of information in resources like the Writer's Market or on a publisher's website will tell you if they want it through the mail. And if they do want it through the mail, don't bear the expense of, they have to sign for it and, let me know that they got it. They got it. They got it. So save your money, save your time. That's annoying to them. But they will also tell you if they want it as an attachment in email. If you have to click a link on their website, they'll tell you exactly how to submit it. But if you are sending it through the mail, don't forget to sign your name on your query letter. Because there's nothing that says simultaneous submission more than if you forget to sign your name. If you have one of these going out, you're going to remember to sign it. If you have 15 of these going out, you might forget to sign one or two, and that to them says simultaneous submission, and you never want them to think that they are not your first choice. So there's a lot of people who are afraid of simultaneous submissions. Oh, I'll send it one at a time because that's what they like. Yes, that's what they like, but if you send your novel one at a time, every 6 months or a year, it's going to take you 15 years to get your book published. So I'm all in favor of simultaneous submissions. And sometimes in that paragraph information in the Writer's Market, it will say something like, no simultaneous submissions accepted. I choose to ignore that statement. Sometimes it will say simultaneous submissions accepted if you indicate it's a simultaneous submission. I choose to ignore that statement. It is not a law. It's just their preference. And my preference is to get published sooner rather than later. So I'm going to submit simultaneously, and it's none of their business. Chances are, you're only going to get accepted by one anyway, for whatever reason. That just seems to be the way it is. The first magazine article I ever submitted, I sent to 13 different publications as a simultaneous submission. The first response I got was an acceptance. I was elated. I thought I was probably one of the greatest writers in the world. Here was the first thing I ever sent in, and they wanted it. And I got down to the part that said how much they were going to pay me, and they offered me $150. And I thought, I'll just wait for the best offer. After that one acceptance, I went through 12 very painful rejections for the same piece of work, just landing on a different desk with a different person reading it. And it brought me back down to where I should be. I'm a writer, just like everyone else. And I wrote back and I said, yes, thank you very much. I'll take that $150. And I was very happy to see my name in print. But it also taught me that if all 13 rejected it, I could just send it to 13 more. Or maybe wait a few months, change the query letter, the cover letter, and send it right back to the same 13. Because chances are it's not going to land on the same desk the second time around. You'll address it to the contact person in the paragraph information in the Writer's Market. But that's not who sees it first. It goes to one of the readers for that editor. And that's a very high turnover position. So chances are, 6 months later, it's going to be somebody completely new looking at this query letter, and they might like it. So don't be afraid to resubmit to somebody. Don't be afraid to submit simultaneously. The only time I don't is if I'm sending it to 2 different publishers, but it's the same exact contact person and address. That means they are 2 imprints of the same publisher, and it's going to land on the same desk, and they're going to know immediately it's a simultaneous submission. So we'll pick one. If I get a rejection from that one, I'll send the other one. If it's the same email address, I'll do the same thing. I'll wait till I hear back from one before I send the other. So you can do things like that. So make sure that your query letter is formatted correctly. Make sure that it includes your basic information, what qualifies you to write this, what your credibility is as a writer, the crux of the story, your pitch, with a little expansion on that pitch, and the politeness at the end. Be professional, and it will go a long way. All right, I think we're going to take a little break, and then I'll be up for questions. I'll be over here. Just note a couple of things. On the right-hand side is a list of all the publications that I brought with me. The first one is really the only one that needs a full explanation, the full-length book Getting Published A to Z. This is the book version of the 12-week online course that I teach on publishing. This is word for word, the entire course, all the resources, all the assignments, all the links. The only thing I did not include here is the final exam, because who wants that? Nobody. So I left that out, but everything else is in there, and because I am here today and the books are here today, instead of 25, today only the books are 20. So if you want one, there are 20. Feel free to come on over. There's an index in there. You can see everything that's covered. All these other books, there's really no duplication of all the other ones. If you are self-published, I suggest the 99 Ways to Market Your Book. Even if you get traditionally published, again, you're responsible for that. There's a book about book signings. If you want to get into self-publishing, there's an Amazon tutorial for that. So there's a lot of different things over there. Feel free to come on over and pick through it. And then after the break, I'll be happy to do a Q&A. So thank you. Take the online course. You can go to virtually any community college or university, so vbc.edu, look for their online classes. Mine is going to be one of them, but instead of, I had to change the title for the book version, so it's called A Beginner's Guide to Getting Published online. So that's the online course. Or if you go to my website, which is listed on the yellow sheet, there's a link there that will take you directly to Ed2Go and the online course there. If you take it through the company itself, it's about $119. If you take it through one of the colleges, I think they charge about $89 for the course. Okay, any questions about the query letter? Yes?
Dan, you said in a query letter, mention your platform. Could you give us kind of an example about what you might say?
You can say, as part of my marketing efforts, start with that. As part of my marketing efforts, I have an Amazon author page. I also have X, Y, Z, and what you can do. I'm also familiar with book signings and have connections with several bookstores in the area, things like that. And get connections with your local bookstores. They're still out there. Also, so we were talking along the break that someone said she did her book signings in coffee shops. So she would go to a town and find out from the Chamber of Commerce what the hot spot was in town, the hot coffee shop, and she would send out flyers and do her book signings at the coffee shop. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. Libraries, you can do book signings at libraries. So just present to them all the things that you'll be able to do for them.
Thank you.
How wide of an audience, if you've been published, how wide of an audience would be credible to mention in a query letter?
Can you be more specific with your question?
Like if it's a monthly newsletter or...
Oh, what the circulation is?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a small amount, say if it's, under 1,000, you're not going to mention numbers. If it's a local newsletter and it's over 1,000, that's a good following for a local publication. If it's a worldwide organization newsletter, then you want to have numbers like 5,000 and things like that. So if it's smaller than what you think it should be, don't mention the number. If it's larger than what it should be, definitely toot your horn.
What are the biggest mistakes you've ever seen?
Well, I made a few of them. Well, probably one of the biggest mistakes that writers make is having too big of an ego about their writing. They think their writing is perfect and so good, and you can't tell me, that My grammar is not perfect, and you can't tell me. One of the biggest mistakes that writers make in terms of writing is using passive voice. So I've even seen paragraphs of information in the writer's market where a publisher is saying, this is what we want, this is how you send it, and they say in capital letters, stop using passive voice. That's how much they hate it. And the word had, H-A-D, is the most overused word in the English language. And you will find that 80% of the time, when you look at the word had in your sentence, if you cross it out, the sentence still reads smoothly, and it changes it from passive voice to active voice. So search for all your hads. And know you have to cross out 8 out of every 10. Yes?
What is passive voice?
Passive voice is, I had been going there for 20 years. I went there for 20 years. Turns it from passive to active. So even if it's something in the past, it can still be active voice. And if you look up passive voice, you just do an internet search for passive voice, it'll give you some really great explanation and examples of what to do. But again, that word had is the biggest one.
I struggle with that because we're trying to stay away from was, which is also passive, and they suggest to use have been in place of was. A lot of times I can see that works.
Well, there are occasions when the word had and had been is going to be perfectly appropriate because you want this to be passive voice because it's something in the past and you don't want to say the same thing the same way. You want to find different ways to say the same thing. So in that case, there's going to be occasions where it's going to be perfectly appropriate and sound good and be okay, but the overuse of it is what gets really annoying. So that's why I said like 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Get rid of 8 out of 10. The 80-20 plan. Yes?
My word is just. I'll be writing and I'll put just about or just this, just that, and why do I put that in here? Doesn't make any sense.
The word just?
Just, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people use the word just, and you know what? And this is an interesting male-female thing. You'll find more women use the word just.
Well, that's
And it's not, I'm not,
That's my family.
saying anything about you, but historically, women use the word just to explain themselves.
Yeah.
So that's another word that you can just try to eliminate. You can just try to eliminate.
You mentioned if you've been self-published, sales figures don't matter. I've actually found that publishers, when they are negotiating contracts, tend to say, and how much did your last book sell? Have you not run across that?
Oh, sure. I mean, sales figures do matter, but what I think what you're referring to is I said, if you haven't had much success selling your self-published book, you don't even want to mention that you did it. But if you have had success, that will entice them to do more. So yes, sales always matters, or circulation matters, all those things. But if it's lower than what is expected or should be, that's when you want to avoid that conversation. Just avoid that conversation. Just. Yes?
What's the minimum or what's the benchmark?
1,000 is a really standard benchmark in the publishing industry. So if you've sold more than 1,000 books, mention it. If you've sold under 1,000 books, if it's only been out for 3 months. It's interesting, in one of my lectures I was at Finger Lakes Community College in New York State, and there were 2 gentlemen in the session who both self-published. So I asked them to share their story so that other people could hear their experience. And one gentleman said that he self-published his book 10 years prior to coming to the session, and made a $15,000 investment in his book, had 1,000 books printed, was selling them for $15 a piece, so essentially just trying to get his money back, and in 10 years sold 300 books. Not a lot, and he said it was all through book signings at bookstores. It's very labor intensive. And he gave me one of his books. I read it. It was a murder mystery. I think the name was Dangerous Game, and it was a good book, but with one professional edit, it could have been a great book and maybe gone to a traditional publisher. So that was, to me, that was the difference.
Was that content editing or just surface?
Everything editing.
So
Yeah.
developmental.
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. The other gentleman said he self-published his book 3 months prior to coming to the session. Declined to say how much he invested. Also had 1,000 books printed, and in 3 months sold 300 books. That's pretty good. Did not give me a copy of the book. I have no idea if it was any good, but he said the secret to his success is that he purposely did not put a picture of himself on the cover of his book. And all of his sales were through book signings at bookstores, but he engaged all of his friends to help him do book signings at bookstores, pretending they are him. Pretty, I don't know how ethical that is, but it's a pretty interesting marketing strategy. I think I'd leave that one off the query letter. But 1,000 seems to be the standard benchmark for sales. Any other questions? Yes?
About your blog, how often are you going to blog? Blog, how often does she blog?
It's really not something I want to do because I'm not a consistent enough person. I'm a procrastinator, so if I say once a week, it'll be like down to the last minute, and I'll be like, oh, I have to do it. But I have enough content that I've already written that I can probably do it for a year once a week and not have to write anything new. So I think the importance is to decide how consistent you're going to be. It can be once a day, once a week, once a month. But people will count on that. Oh, it's Monday morning. I'm, going to go. Here comes my email to remind me of the blog, and it's there. So you have to be consistent, but make sure that you have enough content so that when you don't feel like it, you're having some writer's block, you're too busy, you're on vacation, you can still get that content out there.
Another related to that is, how long are your articles or your blogs?
Mine are going to be about 200 to 500 words, period.
Good,
So that's it for me, and that's really like one full page. And your query letter, like when I edit a query letter, I will only take, somebody has to narrow it down to 500 words for me, and then I'll take those 500 words and bring it down to 300, because that's a one page query.
Is it possible, or can you get somebody to professionally help you set up with blog?
Oh, can you get people to do your blog, set up your blog for you? Absolutely. There are definitely people out there that you can hire to do it. But it's not that difficult to do it yourself, because let me tell you, I am by far so unsavvy in terms of tech. Everything is kind of a struggle for me. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. Although I will also say that for my YouTube channel, because I know nothing about that, I hired an 11-year-old to be the producer of my YouTube channel, because that's how much they know, and I don't. So. Say that again?
Wait a minute.
Is that contact information?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Oh, who you're talking about.
I made up my mind to start a blog, and I have like enough articles already written. I just can't seem to get past the setting it up, the technical part.
Yeah. One of the new sessions that I'm going to have this spring is to help other writers set up their blog, using the step-by-step that I did, because it's really, if you break it down, it's pretty simple. I'm a big proponent of breaking things down, do it, deconstruct things and do it that way. But the one difference that people have to understand, because usually the end result of a blog is you want people to buy something, right? You want to make money with this blog. So there's a difference between getting a free blog and paying for a blog. And you can't offer affiliate links, which, will people, if you go to my website and you click through some of my books that are on Amazon, it takes you right to Amazon. And you can buy that book. And if you buy that book on Amazon, I get the royalty for the book, but I also get an affiliate commission from Amazon for selling the book for them. Now, if you have a free blog, you can't do that. So there's differences, things that you should research to determine what your goal is in having a blog and do it. But content. Have it ready.
What is a free blog?
A free blog, you can go through WordPress and get one that's free. It doesn't cost anything.
Oh.
Blogspot.
Yeah.
Blogspot's another one.
Blogspot.
I went through, actually, because I knew I wanted to make money with my blog is WordPress, but I bought it through GoDaddy, who hosts my website.
I know I want to make money, and I have WordPress.
Mm-hmm. And you can flip it. If you have a free one, you can flip it. So that's kind of a whole nother session. Does anybody have any other questions about the query or something else? Yes?
I have a question. How do you feel about listing, where your books are being sold? Like, I have a prospectus, and I do historical nonfiction, as I told you, and I have various, historical sites and sites, whatnot, that carry my books. Is that okay to do, you think, or?
To list, like on your website, where your books, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You got to be your biggest cheerleader and point them in the right direction.
Now, I also include not just the name, but I also include the phone number so they can verify, or the email address so they can verify that what I say is true. I thought that was probably.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The more information you provide to people, the more they trust you.
To piggyback on that, is that allowable in a query letter? Is what he's saying?
Oh, did you say like in your query letter you're going to put this information? I thought it was like on your website for the public to know.
On his website?
Yeah.
What about the query letter? How detailed would they want to know that you have your marketing fingers out in those?
I think you want to get detailed enough to fit into a paragraph.
Okay.
So the more detail, like the less you have, the more detailed you can get about it. The more you have, the less detailed you have to be about it, because it has to fit into that paragraph.
Okay, but this is different because I own the website that has the books for sale. So that is my marketing connection, is the website, not just social media.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters that you own the website.
Okay.
That's irrelevant who owns the website. What's relevant is it effective?
Okay. And my other question was earlier about submittable.com. There's a lot more gatekeepers out there.
Yeah, a lot of those third-party gatekeepers that will submit for you, I really haven't heard enough good results to recommend them, but I haven't heard enough irate people to not recommend them.
And connected with that is with the market, writer's market, they don't all have the editor's name listed, so you can't come up with a name to send it to.
Well, there's two things you can do. If it doesn't list anybody, it might say submissions editor. That's fine. If that's what they want, that's what you put. You don't have to search for a name. If it doesn't say anything, it could be a simple search on their website to find something. If you don't want to go through that time. If I don't know who to send it to, I send it to acquisitions editor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Did my yellow sheet go around for everybody who wanted to?
Yes, well, it's here. I
It's
think
right here.
Can you pass it over here?
Any other questions? And I know this is a lot of information, you know, about the query letter. It's a lot to absorb, but that's why you have my email address on your yellow sheet. As long as you're on my yellow sheet with your email address, it won't go in, I plug that in, so it won't go in my spam folder. And you're more than welcome to ask me questions later on. You can go to my website. There's information there. The rate sheet that I have over here is half price of anything that you see on my website. So make sure that you take a rate sheet. If you have one of those, anything you want me to help you with or do for you is half price. I call it my student rate. So today you are students. Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks very much for having me here today. If you have any other questions, I'll be right over there. Feel free.